Hey, what's up followers? Dave here from CNC3D. So we thought we'd put this quick video together about the latest updates to our CNC3D Commander software. For those of you that do not know, our CNC3D Commander software originally started off as a GRBL sender and has basically evolved into a really serious platform for those of you that have a GRBL controller, or if you do have a more advanced controller such as an ESP32 based one like an X Pro V5 or our Nighthawk controller as well. So let's go through some of the features within Commander. So across the top here, you have two methods that you can choose to connect to your controller. One option is you can obviously choose to connect via COM port, and that could be either a USB based controller or a Bluetooth based controller as well, like a lot of ESP32 GRBL units do have. Alternatively, you can connect up to an IP, so that could be via Ethernet or via Wi-Fi, and then you can simply just choose to connect up. Just before we do that, let's go through some of the other features quickly that are within our Commander software. So just before we get into it as well, the About button at the top here will tell you the current build of Commander. So this specific video relates to build 293 or later. So as long as you have build 293 or later, then this should definitely apply to you. If for some reason you've opened Commander and it hasn't asked you to update and you have an earlier version than this, then definitely try to update your software, or if you have difficulty doing so, reach out to us. There are some help points up here in this help button. So we are focusing on build 293 here today. So across the top, you've got a couple of buttons. There is a My Tools button here. And basically what this is this is a full tool management library for all of your end mills and cutters. It's split up into three groups, where the first layer is a toolbox, and then you can have a tool set, and then within a tool set, you can have a specific tool in here. And this database is basically pre-populated with our CNC3D TurboCut end mills. You can obviously choose to add your own library in here by clicking on New Toolbox, and then you can choose to add your own tools in here as well. So feel free to go ahead and do that. And if you do use bits from another vendor and you'd like to reach out to them and ask them if they would like to add their own factory profile into Commander, we would be delighted to work with them on doing so as well. So you're welcome to have a play with this. The buttons are relatively self-explanatory, so feel free to import your tools so that you can always get your right feeds and speeds to suit your specific machine. So moving forward, we do have this create button at the top here. Now for some of you this may be flashing, and there is a reason for that. But first of all, we do have our machine tools in here. So the first option is a spoil board surfacing tool. So you can quickly and easily set up a spoil board surfacing job here. We do have this max size button down the bottom here when you're connected to your controller. We will basically go through and determine exactly how large your actual work area is if you have specified that, and we can adjust this job to specifically suit your machine to keep things really easy for you. So moving on, you do have a laser image engraver in here where you can choose to import any sort of picture you would like. So for example, we'll just bring this in, and you can do beautiful grayscale engravings with a laser if you wish. So the next option in here is our CNC2D Toolpath Suite. So I'm just going to try to get this into view here. So let me just get this window down. And this is basically a full 2D CAD design tool and CAM tool. If you click on the help button at the top right here, you do have the option of checking out this really handy video tutorial, but you can choose to do that in your own time. So we'll just close out of here and go back into Commander. Now the next option at the top here, we do have this settings menu. Now this covers a lot of the settings of the features within Commander, so things that are configurable, such as the keyboard pendant control and gamepad control. So you can actually control your machine with any X input based controller. So that could be an Xbox 360 or Xbox One controller, and some PlayStation controllers as well. Now this function, or the gamepad control, currently only works on 64-bit versions of Windows, and unfortunately at this stage does not work on 32-bit. So Moving forward, obviously you do have your About button at the top here. So this basically just gives you the current version of Commander. And there is also a Help button across the top here, where the very first tab in here basically has some handy tools that you can use for basically troubleshooting any potential issues with your machine. The first one is this raw data window, which will actually allow you to observe all traffic that's going between Commander and your controller. And you also do have a couple of options, like for example, ignoring the polling commands. You can also choose to manually send commands up here, and you can choose to copy all of the text to the clipboard if you did want to paste in one of our support groups to just try to determine exactly what's going on with your controller. So this is a handy tool for being able to do that. So underneath here, you do have set $10 equals 3, which will help you if your buffer here does not show any values, but we'll take a closer look at that in a moment. You do have the ability to take a look at any errors and issues you receive on USB and Bluetooth ports, and it will actually tell you the type of command and exactly what happened when you tried to do it. Now, we do have a really handy ESP32 firmware tool which can help you with your X Pro V5 or other controller. And basically you can choose to load a new firmware on there. Now, you do need to be very, very careful with the type of firmware that you do choose to put on there. It must be the correct one for your controller. So please only load the right firmware for your specific controller, and ideally the firmware that has been provided to you by your vendor. Failure to choose the correct firmware could cause catastrophic results and permanently damage your controller otherwise. So just be very careful when you do choose to go ahead and use this tool. Now, we do have a very handy tool that we've added into this release of Commander, which will basically allow you to reset the current version of Commander, and it will force Commander to basically re-download the latest update to try to resolve any issues. I've just realized I've left a little typo in here. I can fix that up in the next release. That's not a problem. You can choose to relaunch Commander in here as well, and obviously that will immediately prompt it to re-download the latest version. Now, we do have a set of user guides in here where you can obviously get your Nighthawk manual, your UCarve, Queen Bee, QB2 manual, or your Metal Store manual. And basically, we do regularly update these manuals, and so this resource will always be available to you if you do have a CNC3D based machine. And it will also contain your maintenance guides in here as well for each respective machine, so you can choose to follow through with that. Now, the diagnostics tab will basically show you all of the initial connection data when you first connect to your controller. This can be handy for obviously being able to try to troubleshoot any faults that you may have, and also reaching out to our community to try to get help. Now, in this getting support option, there are two choices here. So for those of you with a CNC3D machine or controller, you can obviously reach out to us directly via these contact points here, and definitely call us during business hours. For those of you that do not have a CNC3D controller or machine, then you can basically reach out to these resources here. So that pretty much covers the entire top menu across the top here. There are some video tutorial buttons available throughout Commander, so keep an eye out for those. Let's just quickly connect up to this controller here and go through some of the settings. Now, at the moment, we are currently configured. We have asked Commander from the settings up here to go into 4-axis mode, so we can actually see all of the axes here. Down the bottom here, you do have your limit/trigger indicators. So we are currently on a Nighthawk, a virtual Nighthawk on our test bench, so that's why this A limit pin is actually lit up. And you can hover over these to tell you what these specifically relate to. And of course, you've got your controller status down the bottom, your easy emergency stop button, and your ability to pause or resume whatever motion the controller is currently in. Now, you obviously have your digital readout on the left-hand side here, and you have some of these values underneath here that we have actually managed to pull from the controller. Some of these values you're not able to do on a normal GRBL-based controller, but you can on our Nighthawk. For example, this offset option here, where we basically constantly tell Commander exactly what job coordinate plane we're currently in. Now underneath here, there are some handy little buttons for you, like the ability to home your machine. You can go to 0 on the X and Y coordinates. That will go back to job 0. You can choose to manually dial in whatever you would like your X, Y, Z, and A values to be. So if we put 10, and 20, and 30, we can hit job coordinates, and you can see that it has automatically updated these without moving the machine. You can also hit 0 job here, and that should zero out all of these values here as well, for you to be able to start a job. Now, if we hit load job on here, so there is a warning here for those of you on a Nighthawk, because we don't recommend running jobs on USB. But in this case, we're just going to load up a quick job here. So let's just pick this UCarve limit pack that we have. And you'll notice it gives you the details of the job and some of the starting conditions, and whether or not you wish to add any automatic dwells in there. For those of you that do have a spindle which is controlled by your actual controller, we can automatically input some dwells in there, so it doesn't plow into your job without actually waiting for it to spin up to speed. Now you can click on this setup job button here, and this will ask you what line you wish to start from. It will also tell you the a few starting options you can choose, like your current job position, or whether or not you wish to home the machine. You're welcome to play around with these if you would like, and you can also choose to add a dwell in here. So say for example, if you want it to wait for 10 seconds after turning the spindle on. Keep in mind this will only work in spindle mode, but we'll cover that very shortly. Now, if we click on the info/trace button, it will actually analyze this job and will tell you the dimensions of the job here. It will also tell you the 0 offset point. So for example, if your G code was structured so that the start point is in the center, it will actually tell you exactly where that is here, and it will give you an estimated time of how long it will take to complete your job. Now, if you are using Vectric or Carveco or Fusion 360, we will actually pull tool information directly out of that job, and it will tell you the tool number and just some tool information, as long as the job has this info already saved in there. So moving forward, you also, can choose to do a trace outline of this job. As you can see here at the moment, this run job button here says run job. If we click on run a trace, it will change it to a trace, and it will actually follow the outline of your boundaries as per the values that are just in here. So you can actually see exactly where that rectangle of the whole job will be when you actually go ahead and run it. Now we do have a view job option in here, so you can choose to zoom in and out using your mouse wheel. You can select an area for you to zoom in closer, and you can drag this little running man across here, and it will actually step back and forward through your job, so you can actually see exactly what it's doing. If you hold the right mouse button down, you can choose to adjust the pan and tilt of this specific job, and basically run through it like this as well. So there is a basic visualizer. Now underneath here, you do have the ability to run jobs. So this specifically relates to our Nighthawk or to other ESP32 based controllers that do have internal storage. You can choose to either upload jobs onto the SD card, you can choose to delete jobs, and you can choose to run jobs as well. Underneath here, you do have some immediate override functions where you can choose to adjust your feed rate or your power or your spindle RPM on the fly. You do have a laser or spindle control over here where you can choose to adjust between M3 and M4. You can choose to turn the spindle on and off, or your laser. And you have a real simple manual command box on the side here, which will basically allow you to type in whatever command you would like that you wish to issue to your controller. Now, that also leads me to a couple of interesting points back here on the side. So we do have this My Buttons function here where you can actually configure buttons to do whatever you would like as a single line command. So the easiest way to set these is you simply just right click on a button you wish to assign. You can choose to put the text in there, so we could say go to G30, and then basically you can actually choose to enter in a specific command for that. And if you double click on these colors here, you can choose to obviously change these to whatever color you would like and just hit update, and these will be permanently saved within Commander, so you can obviously call these at any time you would like to perform one of those quick functions. Now underneath here, we do have a detailed probing wizard within Commander. So you do have the option of Z-axis probing, corner probing, circle probing. You can do angles, and there is a set of settings specifically dedicated to probing. There is this really handy video tutorial button at the top here, so please feel free to click on this in order to get a detailed rundown of how you can actually probe your machine and the options that you do have. Now, there is a handy data log tab that's built in here that will show you most of the commands that are issued through to your controller. So if it has a green tick next to it, it means the command was accepted and was okay. It will also show you whether or not you have any alarms or alerts. So if we did have a function in here that threw an alarm, you could hover over that line and it will actually give you the details of that alarm as well. The same goes down the bottom here for the controller status. If this says alarm in this box down here, you can actually click on this and it will give you a detailed explanation about that alarm. Now, moving on, we do have our macros tab in here. So there is a list over here on the side where you can simply click on these as you add new ones, and you can choose to put some commands in here. Now, our macro procedure, so I have actually created my own macro script, which I've called Dave script, which basically allows you to perform more complex functions, assign variables, and perform mathematical calculations. There is a basic rundown by clicking on this scripting help here, which explains the things that you can and can't do within the Dave script protocol. So please feel free to reference this document here. We will be constantly improving the Dave script protocol to allow you to do a few more things in the future, like for example being able to add if statements and select statements to reflect certain conditions of your controller. So moving forward, you do have an offsets tab here, which basically gives you all of the information about all of the offsets on your machine. You can hit refresh offsets, and that will actually give you an updated view of where they're all at. So feel free to obviously have a play with this if you need to. We do have a full machine profile management system in this tab where you can choose to load these factory-based profiles on here. Alternatively, you can save your own user-based ones as well, simply by hitting save. So feel free to have a play with this menu in here. Now, the rest of these tabs in here pretty much just relate to configuring and tuning your machine without the need of using any sort of command lines. And there are some easy wizards, like for example, to configure your X and Y, and also to do your Z motor tuning as well. And we have the ability to automatically update the data with the right values. So if you are configuring your machine, this may be extremely handy for you. Now, the axes tab basically relates to obviously adjusting the directions of your axes and your accelerations and max speeds. So you're welcome to have a play with that. And most of the other settings are actually here in this peripherals tab, where you can choose to adjust things relating to homing, like the homing order and any sort of offsets, whether or not you have dual axis homing or can access dual axis homing. Keep in mind all of these little yellow question marks, they all give you some advice about what that specific function does. So feel free to click on these to reference them. Now, the arcs tab is very simple. Basically, it just talks about the junction deviation, the arc tolerance. You can click on more info regarding these and it will take you through to the GRBL documentation. Now, in the operations tab, this is where you can choose to switch between spindle or laser control, set your minimum and maximum power values, and obviously do your signal processing. Generally, sticking with the defaults here is usually the best way to go. But if you do need to change those, just check with your vendor first whether or not you should. Now, the connection/ESP32 tab. So we have made an easy breakout for our Nighthawk and for other ESP32 based controllers. The best way for you to be able to obviously go through and configure your networking, if you're not sure, is to click on this video tutorial button, which will take you into our YouTube channel to a specific video for this. So feel free to just have a play on here and it will actually teach you a lot about it. Now, the current/micro stepping section, this does not relate to our Nighthawk controller, which does not have digitally controlled drives, but instead specifically relates to the X-Pro V5 and other controllers that do. So you can quickly and easily tune all of your motor settings directly out of here. So we hope that will be a handy feature for you. So that pretty much covers everything within our CNC3D Commander software up to date right now. I'm sure there are a few things that I have missed. Probably an important one, looking at it right now, when you go to use your keypad or your joystick control, like your gamepad control, in order for you to enable that function, you do need to tick this box down here in order to be able to do it. So while this is ticked, you will have control. If it is not ticked, then you will not have control via the keyboard or via the gamepad. So I hope this has been really helpful for everyone. We're going to continue to work on our Commander project. We really do appreciate the support that all of you have given us over the years, and we're going to do the best we can to try to make it as good as we possibly can for your benefit. Have a great day, guys. Really hope you have enjoyed this video, and I hope it's been helpful.